Hello and welcome today to the Grow Your Life podcast. My name's Jeremiah Krakowski. This podcast, we talk about ways for you to grow in your life and in your business, because if you grow in your life, your mindset, your spirit, it affects business. If you grow in business, you can just do a lot more in the world around you. You can fulfill a lot more of what you're called to do, impact the world. It's not just about you, it's about those that are around you. And on today's episode, I want to talk about finding a business and building a business that is connected to your purpose. Listen, if you haven't listened to last week's episode on what is my purpose, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to it. You don't have to listen to it before this episode, but it will give you a lot of background that I'm not going to rehash over on this one, but I'll give you a little bit of the Reader's Digest of that one. What it is this: I can't tell anybody what their purpose is because I have so many different people from different backgrounds that listen to this podcast. But what I can do is help point you like a GPS to your next destination, or at least to go north, south, east, or west. Let's say there's 5 places for you to go. Imagine there's a restaurant you're looking to go to. Maybe you're looking for the nearest Salt Lick Barbecue in Austin, Texas, one of my favorite places. There's 5 different locations in Austin that you could go to, but you can't be at all of them at once. And so what that episode does is it kind of helps point you to the right place to go, the right direction to go, and helps point the needle in the right direction. That way then you can head in the right way and put one foot in front of the other. And so that's what that episode talks about. And we actually talk about it's a 3-part thing. I'll summarize it here. That I stumbled upon by accident, but I've realized it really wasn't even just by accident. It was very much in alignment with what I've learned over the years and even just my methodology for doing business, for coaching, etc. And so it's really cool that we're putting this stuff together like this for you. The first one was look at what are your bad habits or even guilty pleasures that you have, those things that waste time, that people say are time wasters for you, that aren't helping you for your goals. Mine were always, playing video games or zoning out, watching television, things like that, and zoning out on social media. And I realized, though, I'm called to influence those areas of, film, social media, and even video games, writing books. Also look at, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do with your life? If failure, not only, I wouldn't say isn't an option, it's actually, let's imagine that failure isn't possible. And that's a hard thing for people to imagine because they instantly come up with millions of reasons why failure is possible. But let's imagine in a alternate reality where failure is not possible. And success at whatever it is was guaranteed, no matter what it is. Doesn't have to be what you're doing right now, by the way. I had a coaching call with a lady and she was trying to tell me all the stuff she's doing right now that she thought she could be most successful at. And I said, no, that's not what I want to know. I want to know if you could do anything, if you could be the president of the United States, an astronaut, whatever that is, what would that be? If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And then the next one would be if you knew you were going to die in 30 days, what would you do with that time in 30 days? And when you put it all together, it helps point you in the direction of your purpose, okay? And so I break all of that down in that episode. It's about a 40-minute episode on that topic. But I want to make it more practical and tangible for you on business and what you can do in business. And business affects culture. Business is so powerful because it's business and entrepreneurs that shape the world. Meaning, money mobilizes human beings. You can start a company that builds something that changes the landscape of the future for the next 100 to 200 years. Now, that's not to say that somebody who's not entrepreneurial is a failure or is unsuccessful. And that's actually what I want to dive into here. I have an episode as well that I did on how anybody listening to my podcast can earn $100,000 in any business, no matter where they are, whether they're an employee working in a factory all the way up to somebody who's in a startup business, a network marketer, real estate agent, whatever that is. And this is kind of the continuation of that topic, is once you identify the direction of your purpose, like I said, I can't tell you your purpose, I can't tell you your destiny. There's a history that you and God have together, and a history that you have with yourself that I don't know. There's stuff inside your mind that nobody knows, and so I don't want to discredit that. And I know that a lot of times, a lot of people, especially if you're listening to me right now, maybe have had people in the past discredit what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what's in your mind, because they just don't see it the way you do. And so I want to honor that, and I want to say that none of that is by accident, that none of that is a mistake. That even those bad habits and those guilty pleasures that you have, they're not mistakes, they're not accidental. Okay? And those dreams that you have, if you laid dreams down, those weren't accidental. Those dreams that you might have had 20, even 30 years ago, and I'm young, I'm very young, but I had a dream even that I laid down 20 years ago that is now starting to come back up with film and storytelling, and I'm starting to see, every step of my life for the last 31 years has led me up to this moment in time right now and prepared me for my calling, my destiny, and what I was made for. And I'm starting to see a picture now that I'm getting clear on the direction of my purpose, the direction of my destiny, where I'm supposed to go. And I want to also say, I've been where you are right now. In fact, there's some of you listening to me right now that I am right now where you are right now. And even what I'm talking about, I've gotten a lot of these breakthroughs over the last couple months even. And they've started to materialize, and I've started to see tangible, real shifts and changes in my life. And while I have, 15 years of experience in business as an employee, but not just an employee, what I would call an employee-preneur. I come in as an employee or as a contractor, but I take on kind of what would I do if I owned the shop type of a thing. And I pass on ideas to the owner, to the CEO, to help consult. And even now as a consultant, that's what I do. Somebody brings me in as a consultant, and I look at, okay, I say, if I owned the shop, $100 million company, what would I do that would grow us to 200 million, to 300 million? And I take that on, even though I'm not the CEO, even though I'm not getting paid for that, I take that on in that way. And even right there points to what you can do right now as an employee in a company, if you're listening to this right now, is to take a look at where you're at right now in your life, what you do to make money, and realize that it's not a mistake where you are right now. And that there's actually opportunities to impact culture, to change the world right where you are right now. And there's even lessons for you to learn, and the process can't be skipped. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that here in a second, but I don't want to skip too far ahead without laying some foundation here for you. I believe that everybody was made with a purpose, with a destiny, with a calling, and the way that we execute it is what we do on a daily basis. And so our identity is not what we do, because what we do can change. Our identity is this, is that we were created with a purpose. All of us have limitless potential, but how we execute on it helps bring that purpose to fruition. I also believe that all of us actually eventually do bring our purpose to fruition, but there's a timeline on it that can be accelerated. And a lot of people take 40, 60, even 80 years to find their purpose, to find what they were made to do, because they just didn't have somebody mentoring them or guiding them in that process. And so what I want to be is, I want to honor you right now. If you're listening to this right now, you're 10 minutes in, you're listening to a 31-year-old who has not been through as much life as you have. Especially, I know I have a lot of listeners that listen to me right now that are older than me. I have a number that are younger than me as well. And so I want to say this, that there's also those that are younger than me. You've seen life from a different perspective than I have. And so I don't want to dishonor you that it's younger. You're seeing the future through the eyes that are showing me even what the future is. And so for those that are older, I want to say this, I see the world through a different perspective that you have. And so what's really cool is that we can come together and take the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding, that well-aged, that fine wine, that vintage wine that is high price, that is highly sought after, that those that are in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, even their 90s, and hundreds. Man, I would love to hear of somebody listening to this podcast that is in their hundreds. That would bless me so much. Wow. The stuff that you've seen, and even those that are in their 80s and their 60s. There's, twice my age. I work a lot, often, with people that are in their 60s to 70s. And it's because there's wisdom that they have combined with the perspective of how I see the world now. And we're able to connect it and really see, what are the blind spots that I have that somebody with more wisdom sees? And what are the things that maybe they haven't seen that I see from a new perspective? And then we're able to marry that together. So I want to honor you if you're older or if you're younger than me. That we don't all see the world from the same perspective. That we see it from a unique lens of us individually. And I see the world through a unique lens as well. And so what I want to do is I want to help encourage you. I want to help unlock potential inside of you to help you go further. Listen, I don't want to be anybody's guru. That's not my intention, to be somebody's guru, to tell them, you have to do this, you should do this, this is the path to go. But I know there's some times that I do need to speak into that, and so I'm starting to even walk in that, and walk in confidence and authority in what I do know is true. But my intention isn't to say, okay, this is exactly how you should do it. But what I will do is I want to give you some tools and a framework to where you can then take them on your own with your own experience, your own perspective, and see something differently that you haven't seen before. And so that's my mission with this podcast, with these episodes, with this one right here, is to show you in your unique place in your life, in the moment where you are right now listening to this, whether you're driving, whether you're listening to it in your home, you're watching it on television, on YouTube, and if you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, I have hundreds of videos on there that you can watch on a variety of different topics. And if you're not in the hashtag Grow Your Life Facebook group, it is a university community. We're creating a digital learning system, a digital university, a new school university of what traditional universities have been throughout history. We're making a new model of that. Right now, while you're listening to this podcast, is part of it. You might listen and sit in a lecture hall in a university. These episodes are basically lecture hall episodes, and then you can come into the Grow Your Life community and commune and ask questions in a forum-like setting with other people that are just like you, that are discovering their purpose, their calling, and then building a business. And so if you're not in that community, go join it. There's a link on my website, Facebook community, or you can look up hashtag Grow Your Life on Facebook. And so if you're wanting to know what business you should build that ties to your purpose, if you've discovered what direction your purpose is, that's what this episode is for. And if you're somebody that you're just I just don't know what I should be doing. I just don't know what I was called to do, what I was made for. Go listen to that episode. Go listen to the last episode that I did, the previous one. on what is your purpose, and go listen through that, and go listen to episode number 17 as well, which is called Not Another Cliche Talk on Finding Your Why. And that's really going to help unlock in you, those two episodes combined in tandem, what your calling is, what direction you should be going in. And so once you've discovered that, this is kind of the next step of that. And so I would encourage you, you can either keep listening to this, or you can pause it and go listen to those episodes. The last one that I just did right before this, or episode number 17. And then continue on this one. But if you're somebody that's like, hey, listen, I know what direction I need to go in. I know what I'm called to do. Or maybe you're somebody that you think you know it, but you don't have the confidence to believe in it. I want to say this. I want to speak to you right now. If you're somebody that thinks that you know which direction you go, but you're second guessing yourself, stop second guessing yourself. Trust yourself. If you feel that way, I want to say this. There's a reason that you feel that way, because you have experience. And so don't question it. If you're feeling that inside of you, that, listen, I know which direction I should go, but I want to know how to tie it into a business. But maybe you're a little worried about doing it the wrong way. Maybe you're worried about making a mistake. Part of the process of growing in your life, growing in business, is being okay with making mistakes and being willing to temporarily make mistakes, temporarily fail, to then learn instantly from them, learn what not to do, and then learn what did work, and then combine it. That's why I have so many episodes. That's why I have so many videos on my social media. A lot of my early videos were not very good. I've made a lot of failures over the last 15 years. In fact, I've failed miserably, but I've also succeeded massively as well throughout that time, and and helping businesses grow to 7 and 8 figures. And that's what I want to help. I want to help 100,000 people make 7 figures. That's $1 million. Could be in revenue, could be in profit. Because if you're making it in revenue, that's still 7 figures that went through your business in 1 year, that you put to employees, put to staff, put to advertising. And so you brought $1 million into the economy around you. And so by doing this, I know that if I can help 100,000 people with that, I can help impact the world with a potential of $100 billion of revenue of some kind. And so while right now, I don't have access to $100 billion, if I can help 100,000 people make $1 million each, and they have this foundation of love, of compassion, of making the world a better place, of serving, not entitlement, not arrogance, not just bad attitudes, and they come towards business from a perspective of love and honor and integrity. If I could help $100 billion in the marketplace, because I see every dollar. I heard this weekend from a guy named Jim Baker. Every dollar is a soldier that you're putting into the marketplace. And so if I can help mobilize 100 billion soldiers in the marketplace to operate with integrity, with honor, with respect, and with love, I've fulfilled a portion of my purpose, a portion of my destiny. And so that's my goal. And so you are the only one that can help me do that, listening to this right now. And so if I can help you identify a business that fits into your purpose, not in any single way. I don't want to tell people you have to go into business doing this, you have to do business doing this, you have to do this. In fact, there's some of you right now that are listening to this that are actually called to do business with unethical people. You're called to do business with those that you disagree with, that are even doing harmful things in the world. Because you're called to bring a light, and to bring truth, and to bring compassion and empathy and honor and humility and respect and love into dark places. And that's a tough ask. And so if you're somebody that's gotten to this part of this episode, thank you. Thank you for listening to me enough to really be like, wow, I can really resonate with that. And if you're somebody that you're on the fence, you're not sure, I want to listen more, stick with me through this. Pay attention. If you're driving, just really kind of listen to this. You might need to listen to it when you get home so you can take notes. I'm going to go deep into this, and I'm going to go fast. I'm going to go quick and hard. I'm not going to stop and pause on anything. And so I've laid this foundation for the last 20 minutes of what I'm about to talk about, because I believe that without this foundation, what I'm going to share is going to have less of an effect, or might not have the effect that it needs to have on people. And if you're somebody that's listening to this right now, that this isn't resonating with you, that's okay. That's totally fine. Stick with me. Listen to this. I think you're going to find things that no matter what you believe, no matter what you've seen, no matter what you've heard, they're going to be a little bit different. They might challenge you. They might stretch you. They might push you to your limit. You might feel a little agitated. But what that does is that points to an area of where growth is starting to happen. And growth happens when we go outside of our comfort zone. Growth happens when we let go of the comfortable blanket of our comfort zone that has been wrapped around us for our whole life, and we start to look outside of it into what we can learn. And beyond what we're learning can create some stress, can create some anxiety. But stress stretches us into what we were made to do. Okay? And so once you identify, I'm going to go into it right now here. Once you identify your purpose, your calling, your destiny, or at least the direction of it, you have a choice that you need to make at this point to take action. Okay? And if you're somebody that's listening to this right now, you no longer have the option to sit by and not take action. Because what you were made to do requires you to do something differently than you've been doing up to this point. And so if you've been doing up to this point what is not moving you in the direction of your destiny, you have to get on the horse and move forward. You have to put one foot in front of the other. And I'm going to challenge you right now that if you feel like there's reasons that you can't, those are excuses. Those are reasons that you're coming up with of why you can't. And while they sound good, and while I'm sure that you could build a case that could go to the Supreme Court of why you can't go after your destiny, I'm here to say this. It's not good enough. Those reasons are not good enough to prevent you from living and walking out your calling and destiny. And so we have to decide, and we have to look at what needs to change. What do I need to learn? What skills do I need to learn? Who do I need to meet? Who do I need to talk to? What changes need to be made in my life? What knowledge, what wisdom, what understanding, what conversations do I need to have? What do I need to ask for? And if you're somebody that is afraid and getting nervous about what I'm saying right now, I want to say this, that those nerves that you're feeling are actually pointing to the excitement of walking into your calling and destiny. And the fact that you're still listening to me right now means that you're moving into that direction of stretching, of that stress that's going to grow you into what you're called to do. And even while I'm talking right now, I'm actually feeling a little bit of that myself, because I can feel, that what I'm saying is going to stretch some people. But we have to put on our grown-up outfit. It's time to graduate. It's time to grow. It's time to upgrade yourself. Today is your graduation day. Today is your time to go from just a learner to a doer to a executor, and what executor means is not like execution, like killing, but to execute a vision means to carry it out, okay? So when you execute, say, software on a computer, you're opening it up. You have to open the lid off the box of your life to expand it. It's time to crash through the glass ceiling that has been holding you back. And whatever has been stopping you up to this point from going after your destiny and your calling can no longer be a reason to keep you from walking out what you were made for. So now that we've got that out of the way, now we can really talk about what needs to happen. What needs to happen is you need to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to learn? Who do I need to talk to? What questions do I need to ask? And if you don't know what questions to ask, that's what the Grow Your Life community is for on Facebook. That's what my Facebook page is for. You can DM me. You can send questions in. You can write them in the community. You can ask any question. There's no dumb questions. Okay? It's time for you to start asking. It's time for you to stop feeling anxious and embarrassed about asking questions. You need to ask the questions that you need to know to get the information that you need to go where you need to go. And if you feel like somebody is stopping you, listen, I'm not stopping you. The people in that group aren't stopping you. And there's people just like you that have committed. If they're in that group with you, they have committed to doing this as well. It's a requirement that I require anybody from even joining the group to commit to this. And you, even if you're in that group, have committed to this, to engage, to ask questions and answer other people's questions and connect. And I believe that if we can connect, if we can virtually hold hands and mastermind as a think tank and network together, we can find the people that we need to connect the dots of where we need to go. Listen, the first place that you need to go on your destination to where you're going is that group. From this moment, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not in that Grow Your Life group, or you're like, I don't want to be on Facebook, I don't want to be on social media, create an account just to be in that group. And don't use it for anything else. Okay? Join it. Ask questions. Follow me on just the Facebook page if you don't want to be on anything else. And ask questions in that group. It's time to stretch you. It's time to do things that make you feel uncomfortable. And that uncomfortableness might just be you asking questions in that group. And if you're somebody that's not embarrassed about asking questions, great. Now we can go to the next level. And this is what I want to show you here is imagine that you're driving from New York City to Los Angeles, but you're going to have to go to Columbus, Ohio, to Kansas City, to Phoenix, Arizona, to Anaheim, to Los Angeles. And there's 4 to 5 different stops along the way of reaching your destiny, okay? And your ultimate destiny is like I said, I can't tell you what that is, but I can tell you the stops along the way to point you in the right direction. I can be your tour guide along the way, your navigator to help you with that, okay? And if you want to go further than what we're talking about in these episodes, that's why I do coaching. That's why I do one-on-one coaching. That's why I ask people to DM me, to write me a message. They're unique stuff that maybe they don't want to share publicly. You can ask me in the DMs. I'm not going to screenshot it without your permission. I'm not going to share it with anybody. I'm not going to repeat it and tell people your name without permission. I might use it and say, I talked to a lady the other day who said that, stuff like that. I talk to people all the time. And if you want, I do give away free coaching as well, by the way. And I'll give you an opportunity to win free coaching at the end of this podcast episode. But you have to listen to the end to get it, to understand it. And so listen through the end. But if you haven't joined the Grow Your Life community, it's time for you to join it. that makes you feel uncomfortable, join it, ask questions. It's time for you to do the things that stretch you outside of your comfort zone to get a different result than you've been getting up to this point. And if you expect to get a different result by not doing anything different than what you've been doing up to this point, that is the definition of insanity, to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And I don't think that you are insane. I do not. And if somebody has told you that before, I want to say that they were lying to you and they just didn't understand where you are. You are not insane. It's time for you to do something different. So join that group, ask questions. Once you start asking questions, it might stretch you, the answers that you get. And so, for instance, we have people, they ask questions about, what software to use. I did a podcast episode about that. When you guys ask questions, and this is not a big plug for my group, this is not a plug for the podcast, but I have to lay this foundation, the next level of the foundation. What this episode is going to be is we're going to be building up a mountain that points to identifying what business you should do or what a business is. And I had a Grow Your Life coaching call with the lady the other day, and we identified what she's doing right now and how it fits into a unique business for her in less than 30 minutes, okay? And so we're going to do that. I'm going to condense what I did with her into this episode so that you can do it yourself and do it with the group. So part of this process is interaction with the group. So for you to identify that, you are going to have to interact at some level beyond just listening. You are going to have to be a doer of the words that I'm speaking by going to the group and asking the questions that you have. And the more questions we get, the more I know what I need to speak into for these episodes. The more I know what videos to do, the more I know that. I don't know what you haven't asked. Okay? And nobody does. And if you're expecting somebody to already know by osmosis, by telepathy to know what you're thinking, it's probably not going to happen. So it's time to start asking questions and asking for the help that you need from people and not being afraid of the answers that you get. I find a lot of times people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid of the responsibility they have to do once they get the answer. And so it's time for you to let that fear go, to let it go completely, and to realize that no matter what answer you get, you are still the one in control of the choice to carry out that answer. And so if you have questions related to what I talk about on this episode or any other episodes of this podcast, go ask them in that group. Or if you're like, hey, what episode do you have that's going to help me with this step in my journey? Go ask it in the group. Or you're like, hey, I have 100 videos, over 120 videos actually that I've done over the last 6 months on my Facebook. What video, Jeremiah, do you have that's going to help me with this aspect of it? And I'll send you a 10-minute video, a 30-minute podcast, an hour-long podcast, or a training. Or if I don't have it recorded yet, I will record one. So that's my commitment to you, is that whatever you ask, I will make content for. And that's why this is a new school, university. Is whatever questions come in, if I hear a lot of questions from people, I will start to make content to deliver that. I'll start to create free content, not paid content. Because if I'm going to help 100,000 people make 7 figures, I have to help 100,000 people make 6 figures. I have to help 100,000 people make $50,000 a year. I have to help 100,000 people make $1,000 a month. Get it? So no matter what level you're at, I want to help people get to the next level with that free content. And that's what this is. And then eventually, they can pay me for one-on-one coaching. But I'm not expecting people to pay me that aren't making enough money to afford it. I don't want that to stretch people, in fact. I'm actually taking a unique approach to business to where I want to help as many people as possible with the free content so that they're making so much money that then when it comes time for them to pay for, more access, basically you're going to pay for more access and a deeper dive with me. they can afford it and it's not a stretch for them. And so in that, if you know what questions you need to ask, go ask them. If you know what you're doing, I want you to look at what are those things that you did when you were younger? What were those passions that you had? Did you get in trouble a lot? Did you like sports? Did you like movies? What were your friend relationships like? And these are questions to ask yourself. You don't need to go post these in the group. Or you could, if you want to, you could kind of put this all together and see, all of this points to where you're headed to go. There's a lot of cool tools out there as well for you to discover. If you've never heard of the Enneagram. Enneagram is really cool. I'm a type 3, the achiever type. And I bet there's a lot of people that listen to my podcast that might be a type 3. My wife is a type 8. And so the Enneagram is a great thing. I also like, the Myers-Briggs is really cool. I'm what's called an ENFP in the Myers-Briggs. With DISC, I'm a high D, and then the second one is a capital D and a lowercase I, or Colby. I'm an 8787, and so these are different resources that are actually out there for you that can help identify even certain personality things that maybe you didn't discover. And there's even free ones you can take online. The Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, the Colby, the DISC test. Colby costs money, but the 3 that are free you can do is Myers-Briggs, DISC, and Enneagram. You can look those up and then read about, the strengths, the weaknesses, how to support yourself. You need to learn how to support your unique and individual way of being. And when you can identify that, listen, I don't want to box anybody in. That's why I like to look at what are like 4 to 5 different personality tests that are out there. I think a lot of people, they get locked into just one, and it's just one perspective. But if we can look at a multi-dimensional, 4 or 5 different, 8 different what are you type personality things, it starts to paint a picture of how we work, and it'll start to show that for you. And the Enneagram is one that I've seen that really does a really good job of that for people as well. And so if you're somebody that is listening to this right now and you're just like, hey, get to the meat and potatoes, you're probably a type 8. All of this process, I'm building, I'm teaching, I'm educating. If you're somebody that's like, come on, hurry up, get to the real content, you're probably a type 8, for instance. But if you're somebody that's like just really soaking this in that I'm sharing, you're probably more of that type 3 that likes to really get all the information first so that you can make sure that you get everything perfect. And I want to say this, if you're somebody that is focused on perfection, perfectionism is a lie. Perfectionism is not true. And your need for everything to be perfect, to not make mistakes, to not look bad, if that's your number one need in life, just to validate you, that you're loved, that you have connection with people, you're going to struggle throughout life. And that's what episode number 17 I talk about deeper. But if you can realize that, listen, I don't have to get everything perfect. I can be human. I can make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And you don't get validation from other human beings for what you need to do. Listen, I'm not here to validate you. Nobody in life is going to validate you enough for you to know what you should do. And in fact, most of the people that you're getting validation from aren't helping you. They're actually trying to just get validation from you. And they're just trying to prove that they know what they're talking about, when in fact they don't. And so that's why focus on, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. I heard this from Michael Clifford. He's a great consultant that's out there that works with billion-dollar companies. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And in that, when you're trying to get wise counsel from people, a lot of times there's a difference between seeking validation and wise counsel, and they're not always the same. But when people don't know the difference, they consider them the same, and they'll try to seek wise counsel from anybody. Seek wise counsel from people who have been where you want to go. Okay? Look at, how is their business? How is their ministry? How is their family life? All of that as indicators of who you want to seek wise counsel from. Okay? And then from there, nobody can validate you enough to prove what your destiny or calling is, but they can start to point you in the right direction. Nobody can invalidate you enough to tell you that you can't do what's on your heart. That's between you and God, and you keeping your promises to yourself, okay? And some of you are listening to this right now, and I've said a lot of things that I know for a fact that what I've just said is stretching some people, is triggering them, is making them feel that this is hard. But I want to honor you, and I want to say congratulations for getting this far into this episode. 40 minutes into this podcast episode, you guys. There's people that ducked off of this episode 10 minutes in because they couldn't handle what I was talking about. There's people that ducked out 20 minutes in, and yet you made it twice as far into this episode. And so I want to honor you, and I want to honor the fact that you have stuck through this to this point, and say that it shows me that you are somebody that is committed to this process of discovering your destiny and your calling, and that you have what it takes to go to the next level. If you've gotten to this part of this episode, I know for a fact now, it is not a question. I know from my experience that if somebody has listened to what I've just shared and they can listen further, that they have what it takes to walk out their calling and their destiny, to walk out of what has been holding them back, to walk into where they're going. And so I want to encourage you to take the next step, to put one foot in front of the other. You already know, in fact, what you should do, but you've been second guessing it up to this point. And so I want to encourage you. I want to say this, and I want to honor you and say, listen, that feeling that's inside of you, what you've been doing throughout your life, has pointed to what you should do. And if maybe you still struggle with wondering what that is, I want you to take a look at what have you done throughout your life at different periods in 10-year increments, okay? This is going to be the meat and potatoes. This is going to be the deep part of this episode. Take a look at your life. What did you do what were your passions from the time you were zero, when you were born, to about 10 years old, okay? And some of you, that's even hard to look at, okay? So I'm going to make it a little bit easier on you. I'm going to get a lot closer. Take a look at what have you done for the last 10 years of your life, okay? Even if you didn't like it. But what have you done? What have you excelled at for the last 10 years of your life? Let's not look at the first 10 years of your life right now. Let's just look at the last 10 years. What have you done? And maybe you've had some pain. Maybe you've had some trauma. Maybe you've had just everything has gone wrong. And you've realized, listen, the last 10 years have not been good. And I need the next 10 years to be better than the last 10 years. And the reason you're listening to this right now is because you're somebody that has the tools that it takes to make the next 10 better than the last 10. But I want you to look at what have you done the last 10 years of your life that you've excelled at, even in the midst of it all going bad. There's probably been one thing that you've excelled at. What is that thing? And so for me, I'll just say, what my testimony is on this, because that's kind of the only one I have to give here. As I looked at, I made a lot of mistakes over the last 10 years. But what did I do that was really good? I helped take leaders and people that were called for greatness to make millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and helped point them in the right direction. And that's actually what I excelled at the most over the last 10 years. And so Listen, if you're somebody that the last 10 years has not been your finest hour, the next 10 can be 10 times, 100 times exponentially greater just by you recognizing what did you excel at. And maybe it wasn't honored or recognized by those that were around you. You know, I truly feel like for the last 10, 15 years, pieces of what I was really good at were recognized. They definitely were. I wouldn't have been in the places I was if they weren't. But there's also things that I was actually afraid of walking out because I was afraid of what might happen by challenging the status quo. And what are those things that you know that you could have done better over the last 10 years to have done far better than what you did the last 10? Those point to what you need to start doing in the next 10 that you haven't done in the last 10. So for me, what were those things that I haven't done over the last 10 years? And there's some people that have actually seen me over the last 10 years and they kind of know my path and what I've been talking about. What I didn't do best over the last 10 years is speaking boldly, walking in confidence, and even coming against what I know was wrong, what I know wasn't working because I was afraid. I was actually letting fear dictate my future. I was allowing fear to choose my path. I was allowing fear to choose the words that were coming out of my mouth for me. And even on this podcast, there's episodes, that's why I feel like this podcast gets better and better over time, as I've been afraid to say certain things on this podcast over the last 6 months that I'm starting to not be afraid of anymore. And I realized, listen, I've been doing a disservice to my podcast listeners by taking 45 minutes to get into the meat and potatoes of an episode. And I know even right now, some of you might be listening to this and saying, yeah, you did me a disservice. Let's get into it. Come on, let's go into it. I'm doing it right now. But that foundation did need to be built. And so we're refining what our calling, what our destiny is, where we're supposed to go. And I want to say this for you right now. The meat and potatoes for you, whatever you've been doing for the last 10 years and what you know that you should have done better and should do more of, and that you were afraid of doing for the last 10 years, points to what you need to do for the next 10. Okay? And so take a look at what direction your purpose, your calling have pointed to, and then look at what are you terrified of doing. That thing that you're terrified of, I want you to come face to face with your biggest fear. And even right now, as I'm saying this, you're seeing it. You're seeing, whoa, my biggest fear is challenging the status quo, maybe. My biggest fear is challenging those that came up against me. My biggest fear is speaking into what I know is wrong. Your biggest fear might be walking out what you know you were made for. Maybe your biggest fear is to leave behind what has been holding you back. Maybe your biggest fear might be to start selling because you have such a heart to help people, but you're afraid of selling. You're afraid of asking for money for what you do. And actually, in fact, I know for a fact that most of the people listening to me right now might share that fear, because that's been a big fear for me. But I also know that I have the ability to make millions and even billions of dollars. And yet I've let that fear of what other people might think about me prevent me from doing that. And yet at the same time, I want to honor you and say this: that heart that you have is going to take you to places that greed would never take you. And never lose that heart that you have, that heart of love. Don't ever let greed, don't ever let scarcity keep you from the abundance that you've been called to do. You have been called to make millions of dollars in business. And if you're somebody that's listening to this right now, I want to say this. I know for a fact, okay? I'm going to make a bold statement right now that is going to challenge you. If you're listening to this right now part of your purpose is for you listening to this to make $1 million per year in a business that is in alignment with your calling and destiny. But for you to do that, it has to be more than about you. It has to be more than about how you can pay your bills. It has to be more than about your fears. It has to be more than about just what you're feeling right now. And even in the face of fear and emotion and those feelings, you have to choose the greater portion, the greater path, the thing that you fear the most. You have to choose that in the face of that fear, to put one foot in front of the other. Listen, that fear, that thing that you fear is not going to disappear. That thing that you fear is never going to disappear, in fact. And so because of that, everybody knows the story of David and Goliath. That thing that you fear is like your Goliath. I know that because for me, the thing that I feared was a Goliath for me. The Goliath of the banking industry. For me, these are my Goliaths, okay? The Goliath of the banking industry. The Goliath of media. The Goliath of news media. The Goliath of education. The Goliath of religion. All these things. They're big. But I also know that I've been equipped and called, like David, to go and to sling my slingshot, and to slay the giant, to open up prosperity and abundance for those that follow me. And so even right now, as we're doing this is an act of courage for me. While I'm speaking this podcast episode right now, I'm actually driving right now to Washington, D.C., and I'm actually going to go, my wife and I, we're going to go get some lunch right outside the Capitol, and this is a key moment in our history right now that's going on. But you know what? We're going to stand on that ground and we're going to pray and we're going to say, God, have your will, and we trust and bring that. I'm a believer in God. If you haven't realized that up to this point, I do this podcast. It's a secular platform. I don't make this podcast as a religious platform, but I do bring God into everything that I do because I don't know any other way to do it. And so in that, you were called to make $1 million in a business. And I know that because I know what I've spoken. I know that what I've said. And I also know that the people that I've worked with that have made 7, 8, and 9 figures, because I work with people that make in that range of $1 million all the way up to, over $100 million. And I know those people, the things that they had to break through are the things that you're having to break through right now. And even if you're listening to it up to this point, you have shown me that you're somebody that's called to make $1 million. If you're listening 53 minutes and 14 seconds into this podcast, I have a little timer, so that's how I know how long it is to the podcast episode. You're like, how does he know? It's because while I'm recording, I can see how long it's going. So if you're somebody that's 53 minutes and 30 seconds into this podcast, you're somebody that has been called and equipped and given the tools. And even up to this point, your life has led you up to this point, this moment in time, to make $1 million. And you're my people. You're the people that I'm talking to. You're the ones that are going to be part of that group, that 100,000 people that is going to make $1 million. And if I can just get 100,000 people to listen to 54 minutes into this episode, I believe that I've done my job. And so if this episode has impacted you, I want you to share it with some people. Listen to the end too and make that decision if you want to share it. Share this podcast with some people to help come alongside me for that vision as well. But I want to encourage you this. You've been equipped to do the thing that you fear the most in the face of fear, to go after your calling and your destiny and to walk it out. and that action that you need to make, that choice that you need to make. That choice might be to do 10 minutes a day of video on your social media. Every single day, a live video. Maybe it's to record a podcast like this. Maybe it's to start a Facebook group. Maybe it's to start writing, to start a blog, to start a Squarespace blog. Maybe you don't know how to make a website. So maybe it's to buy my course, Website Building Made Easy, and to create a platform where people can connect with you and hear from your heart. Listen, if you're going to make $1 million, you need to become a communicator. Okay? Yeah, all right. And I actually prayed this morning and said, because I don't even know what I'm going to say on this episode. When I started it, I actually started it not even knowing what I was going to say. So I said, God, just tell me what to say while I'm doing it. And so I'm even right now praying of what to say. For you to make $1 million, you need to be a communicator, and you need to become better at communication. And you need to commit to growing as a communicator. And these episodes of this podcast, I've designed them strategically to help people become better communicators. The whole reason why I tell people to do 10 minutes a day of videos on social media is to become better communicators. It's not for a narcissistic reason of saying, hey, listen, look at me, look at what I can do. It's for you personally to become better at communicating what's in your heart, what's in your mind, in spoken form. And if you do that practice for 6 months of one live video every single day, 5 to 10 minutes long, you will become a better communicator. If you record yourself, if you become a better writer. And listen, some of you aren't called to be, faces of industry. Okay? Not everybody's called to be a Steve Jobs. Not everybody's called to be a Jeremiah Krakowski. Not everybody's called to be a Donald Trump. This brash, push forward personality that just says anything on camera. But that's not why I want you to record video and to start writing. And some of you, maybe if you don't want to, if you don't want to record 10 minutes of video every single day, then you need to write for 10 minutes a day. Okay? I need you to pick a format, in fact, yeah, this is really good. This is really good because I want to empower everybody who's listening to this right now. If you don't want to record video for 10 minutes a day, then you have to start writing for 10 minutes a day. In Microsoft Word, in Google Docs, whether it's blog posts, and you need to start to develop that skill of communication, whether it's spoken word or written, because you need to become a better leader at communicating and leading other people. And so writing in Google Docs, writing and speaking will help you grow as a communicator so that you can email employees better, so that you can speak and lead teams better, so that you can speak. And that's the whole reason why you should start doing podcasting. That's why you should be on social media. That's why you should have a blog. And in 2019 and into 2020, for you to make $1 million, you have to use technology to do so. Or this is the or. And I'm so thankful that you're able to listen to me right now while I'm saying this 59 minutes into this, because when I said that for the last 5 minutes, there's people that clicked off because they decided, listen, I can't do that. So, but I want to honor you and respect you and say this. Listen, if you're not somebody that knows, listen, Jeremiah, I'm not called to do that. I work with a lot of people that are in their 70s and their 80s that are I actually know that they're not even really called to do that. But what they are called to do is to mentor other people and lead other people to be communicators, to be writers, to be speakers, to be influencers. And maybe you're called to find somebody that's 10, 20, 30 years younger than you, to empower them, to empower another person, to come with you, to be the face of maybe what you're doing. Or maybe you're an employee, or you work in an organization, or you mentor people, or you're a teacher. Every single person listening to me right now is called to empower others. And so I want to say this, that you actually, this is where the money thing gets kind of confusing for people. You will make $1 million just by making your focus, how can I empower others? And how can I empower others to empower other people? And there's a man, his name is Dave Meltzer. He has this thing that he packaged together. And he says, listen, if I can, and I want to say this to you, he says, if you can and I can empower, if you can empower 1,000 people to empower 1,000 people who empower 1,000 more people, meaning let's say you personally empower one person. This is good. This is really good. Because I know there's people listening to this right now that aren't called even to empower 1,000 people, or maybe where they're at right now isn't to empower 1,000 people. But maybe they work with somebody that is, or work with somebody who works with somebody that is. Maybe you're somebody listening to this right now who works with somebody who is an advisor to a leader that leads thousands or millions of people. And I know this because I just spent a weekend with 50 people like that this weekend. Over 50 people that while they weren't in this moment in time called to be the speaker, to be the influencer, to be the writer, to be the author, but they do have the ear of the people who are called to be those people. Or, and this is a hard one for some people, they're called to be the leader of the leaders of leaders. You might be somebody who is called to, just through relationship, impact a generation. And there's a story in the Bible. There's a story about King Esther, or Queen Esther, and the King Xerxes. Okay, I'm just going to share this with you. But there's also Esther's uncle. I think it was actually Esther's cousin who took her in as a mentor. So she was while he was her cousin in the Bible, he took Esther in while she was an orphan and influenced her one-to-one, so he didn't speak to thousands of people. Okay? And Esther was the queen, but she even, in the one thing that saved the people group of the Israelites. This is in the Bible right here. Okay? Some of you are called to be like Esther's cousin, like Esther's uncle, or like Esther. And you have people in your life that have the ear of kings and queens that influence millions of people. Okay? And you're like, man, if only I could speak to that king or queen like they can, I could. And maybe you're not positioned to do that right now, but that's because God has you positioned right where you're called to be in this moment in time. But you have the ear of the people that are called to influence kings and queens. And so you can speak to them and empower them to empower the leaders that they work with. And so by you just empowering one person that empowers another one person, okay? So when Esther spoke to the king, that was one person that she spoke to. And it's funny, when I read the story, I always thought it was the uncle, but it was also like a cousin. He took her in as an orphan under him, as a mentor. So he was one person that spoke to one person that spoke to one person. So that's 3 levels deep of single people, individuals. So maybe you're somebody right now that has somebody in your life that speaks to an influencer. But you have influence over the person who influences influencers. You have the ability to influence billions of people just by how you're connected. And if you ever heard that, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or you're only 6 people away from every single person. That's what this is. And it's a model that's actually in the Bible of how you as one individual can walk out your purpose, your calling, and your destiny just by influencing one person. And I even know right now, while I'm doing this podcast, I'm influencing other people that will influence those that are called for greatness, to change the generations, to change history, to shape history. But maybe you're not positioned next to the kings, next to the queens. Maybe you're just the aunt, the uncle of the person, and you have somebody in your life that is a young person that you can mentor, that you can speak into, that you can influence. And by your influence, they will then go and influence those in the positions that they're in that will shape the nations and shake history and change the course of history because of your yes in the face of fear to talk to them, to encourage them in what they're already called to do. And you will not care about the credit that you get for it. Because here's the thing, I heard this a long time ago. If you don't care about who gets the credit, nothing is impossible in your life to walk out your calling and destiny. And if you can empower other people to shine brighter than you can fulfill more of your purpose, more of your calling and destiny. And that's why I point to, what can you do in a business? What is your purpose? What is your calling? What is your destiny? And how do you identify that? And that's what those episodes are that I've talked about, your purpose. And I hope that through this, I'm starting to point to a picture of what a business is for you. And if you're still like, Jeremiah, tell me what my business is that I should do. Listen. I want you to take a look at who are the people that always come to you for help, that always ask you for advice. Okay? Those are the people in your life, whether they're family, whether they're friends, whether they're business owners, whether they're influencers, whether they're people on social media, whether they're random people, random strangers. I want you to write them down. Who are those people? And then also write down, what do they ask you for help with? So what do people always ask you for advice in? Okay. For me, it was always usually business leaders that would ask me for advice in business. And I'm like, y'all, I've never made $100 million. Why are you asking me for that? And I realized, maybe that's what I was called to do in business, was to help the 100 millionaires, the billionaires, with advice that maybe they have blind spots in. Maybe, you think? So that's what I'm starting to do. And that's what I do in my consulting. And that's what I do with these podcasts, is to help empower others to do the same. And I think that there's some of you that are listening right now that you're positioned right now to influence millionaires and billionaires, or future millionaires and future billionaires, and you're called to be a voice in their life for where they're going, whether you get credit for it, whether you get money for it or not. And there's a contrarian side of this. Listen, if all you're worried about is how much money you can make 1,000 times more money by not worrying how you're going to get money. And that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. And people are like, well, listen, Jeremiah, if you're in business to make profit. So you're not in business to just empower and just to serve. Okay. If that's your focus, that's a scarcity mindset. That's a fear mindset. That's a poverty mindset. That's poverty to say that. Because you're so worried about, if I don't get money, then I won't be able to go after my destiny and calling. No, listen, if you don't go after your destiny and calling, you're not going to be able to get the money to fulfill your destiny and calling. And so I want to encourage you. A lot of people try to separate these two things, the money from the purpose. They're not supposed to be separated. But the one that comes first, people ask, which came first, the chicken or the egg, okay? What came first was knowing the purpose, the destiny, and the calling, and then going and getting the money. And so it's time for you, if you're listening to this right now, to go get that money. Man, that sounds so brash and so harsh. Go get that money. Seriously, I want to encourage you now. If you know what it is, how you're supposed to serve other people, it's time for you to go get that money and stop giving away your time for free, to stop selling yourself short and devaluing yourself because other people aren't recognizing your value. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, and start to position yourself in a way to walk in confidence, to walk in authority and say, hey, listen, I know we've been working for a long time on this, but listen, I'm starting to grow. I got like 10 other people that are asking me to do the same thing with you, and I got to pay my bills somehow. So let's work out something that's mutually beneficial for us. Right there, what I just gave you was my negotiation script of how I make 6 and 7 figures consulting. And you might need to rewind back the last minute, back to an hour and 10 minutes. I say, hey, listen, I have a lot of people I'm working with. I want to keep helping serve you. I want to keep working on this. But I'm only one person. Let's figure out, what lane can I best be utilized in that will help serve you? And how can we make this mutually beneficial to where, I can start to get paid in this, because I have so many people. I got people right now that are already paying me to do this. So I can't do everything for free. I'm giving you a script right now that you can use to negotiate 7 and 8 figure consulting. Yep. And maybe it's a partnership. Maybe you'll get 10% of a company just by using that script. Listen, maybe you'll go in as an advisor or a consultant with a service that you've been doing for 20, 30 years. Maybe you have been doing accounting. Maybe you've been doing advertising. Maybe you've been doing development. Maybe you've been doing artistic, creative work. Maybe it's video production. Maybe it's just mentoring. And you're going to go into a company to bring more profit into that company, to the point to where now they can start to afford you and say, hey, listen, for us to work more closely, for you to get more access to me, it's going to cost more. And listen, it's not going to cost cheap. I'm going to need about $10,000 more a month for you to work with me for an extra 10 hours a month. I just had a conversation with a guy the other day about that. I said, hey, listen, I've reached my max of what I can do with what we've been doing. And so listen, for me to fly in, once a month to work with you, it's going to be $10,000 more for us to do that. And they're like, all right, we're going to go see how we can make this work. You see what I'm saying here? And so it's stair steps, that experience, and that's how you can build a business that's in your calling and your destiny and your purpose, just by you helping and serving and focusing on how can I serve in the best ability that I've already been activated in. And you'll start to see that, and you'll start to see, okay, what can I do? And I want to say this, you're already positioned right now for that business. Maybe you're somebody that has a system that you're working with. Maybe you have a network marketing company. Maybe you have an affiliate company. Maybe you have a blog. Maybe you have a financial services company. Maybe you have a background that you can lean on. Maybe you have referrals. Maybe you have a network. Maybe you have a LinkedIn. Maybe you have a Facebook page you haven't been utilizing. Maybe you can just start to talk to. Maybe you could go get a job somewhere doing what you've been doing for the last 30 years, but do it with a new lens of how can I grow in this? And instead of worrying about climbing the corporate ladder, you'll focus on not worrying about other people around you, but focus on how can I help serve the place that I'm in right now to walk out my destiny and calling and to help those that are around me to reach theirs and to empower those that are around me. And if make it your mission in business, how can I help others walk out their destiny, their calling, their purpose, and money won't be an issue. And that's how you can build a business that's in alignment with your purpose. And so even as I'm saying this right now, you're getting a clue as to what that business is, what that thing is that you're called to do, what you're already equipped to do. And if you have questions on this, you say, hey, listen, I listened to your podcast, Jeremiah. It was really good. It was really good content, but I'm stuck. I don't know what business I should do because you didn't tell me what business I should do. Well, of course not. There's probably 100,000 different businesses that are going to listen to this podcast. So if I say one or the other, I'm not going to help anybody. But what I can do is I want you to ask me questions. I want you to join the Grow Your Life community on Facebook to say, hey, listen, I've been thinking about this. We just had somebody the other day, Jory, say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about where should I start? I have a system. It's a kind of a life purpose path thing, life coaching business. What should I start with? And just start asking those questions in the group and start asking on my social media and start engaging and start listening to more episodes of this podcast. And if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me, we can do that for free. Okay? I'm going to give you a free 30-minute coaching call. All you have to do is leave #GrowYourLife on my Instagram. Go to my Instagram, leave #GrowYourLife. And what I'll do is I'll actually reach out to you and I'll start to ask some questions, in the DMs. And we'll start a conversation going. And then I pick one person that's a winner that leaves #GrowYourLife on my Instagram every Sunday that wins a free 30-minute coaching call with me. But even before that coaching call, we can actually do some coaching for free in your unique whatever it is that you do. If you leave a #GrowYourLife on my Instagram, it tells me that, okay, it's like an open door. You're giving me an invitation to reach out to you to just ask these questions. And I'm not going to sell you on anything. I'm not going to pitch you on higher coaching. If you want to coach with me, it's $1,500 an hour, okay? And I do packages, if you want 4 hours with me, it's $5,000. And so, but I know most people that are listening to this right now, they can't afford that. So that's why I want to help those that are not at that level yet to get the coaching. And so that's why I want to DM you and do that and see what can we do, what can we work out, what can we put together to help point you to what business is you're uniquely called to. And if you want, you can accelerate that process. Send me a DM, say, hey, listen, this is my website. This is what I'm working on. These are my goals. This is what's worked. This is what's haven't. This is what I want to do. This is what I think I should do. What do you think, Jeremiah? Send me that in a DM. Or post it in the Grow Your Life community, better yet. We'll have multiple people that can help you in that process. Post all that in that group. Leave #GrowYourLife and you can win a free 30-minute coaching call with me. We can even talk in the DMs though. And help you find what business it is that you're called, that you're destined to, that aligns with your purpose. I believe in you, and I know that if you're listening to this right now, you can make $1 million. Grow your life, everybody. We'll talk soon.